In today's session we talk about the Spring Boot and MySQL. Okay, so in this Spring Boot is the framework which provide to write the REST API in a Java application. Okay, Java REST application we are writing in a Spring Boot application, and MySQL is the database where we are SQL database, RDBs, relational databases where we are connecting with the MySQL. Okay, in today's session we walk over the agenda or content of today's session. First we talk about the how to create database, how to create table into that, how to start our Spring Boot application, what is meant by dependency tracking and how to ingest this, what are the configuration is required, how to map database with the repository. Like here, suppose employee is the entity or a class that should get matched with the table. So how we are doing that internally, we are doing that entity, how to map this entity with the tables and controllers. Okay, in a Spring Boot application, like just for example, this is end user. Suppose end user hit any RESTful API that get converted into Spring JPA. Spring JPA send that request to the MySQL. Till that there are multiple layers. Earlier also I highlighted, just to revisit I will reiterate over here. So end user hit the application that came to the Spring controller. Okay, Spring controller or request dispatcher you can call, request dispatcher or the servlet, request service dispatcher servlet. So that means Spring controller request will there, then the actual business layer logic request came, then business layer transfer to the DAO layer or the DTO layer or the DB layer, you can call anything, and then request go to the database. Okay, these are the multiple layers from application from the end user to the database. Okay, then we'll start how to create the database. Okay, so earlier in a MySQL session I already explained how to connect with the database, so you can go there and check it out, how to install and how to check that. So whenever you are logged into MySQL console, you just need to enter like create database, and this is a database name. In our case, REST API is a database name. So when we create the database, by default it's not get selected, so you need to mention that use whatever I created a database, use this database, like use REST API database. In that database we are creating a table, because database is the name, but inside that database there are multiple small tables are there. So collection of tables are called as a database. Tables, views, trigger and all the stuff. Here we are creating table block. ID is the ID, title and content. These are the columns. Like in a table, suppose this is a table, I have multiple columns. Okay, we have, so first one is ID, then title, then content, that kind of columns we have, and this is actual the data. Okay, so here we are saying ID is unsigned auto increment by default at a database, and this is a primary key. Title is a varchar and content also varchar. Okay, that's the way we created the database. Okay, this internally look like this. Okay, to connect the database, so before till now the database part is a complete. Okay, so we need to go at a Spring application. So first you need to visit that starter.spring.io or springinitializer.io. Just go over there, and what this website do. Here we just go and create choose, like select things, particular things, which like choose firstly Maven, and then choose the language as a Java, and in dependency tab select the Spring Web, Spring Data JP and MySQL. Okay, and after that you just click to generate, and whatever zip is downloaded, that zip have all the dependency libraries in a form of a pom.xml. Okay, whenever you import that project into your application or your Eclipse, any tool if you are using, just import that project, all the dependency is downloaded into your local system. Okay, so after that if you check your pom.xml, you will get to find that spring.data jpa and the connector Java is there, because here we already selected like Spring Data JPA and MySQL driver. That's why these things get downloaded. So Spring Data JPA provides the entity and the repository connections and all the managing we are, and connection means Java to MySQL connector is there. So they connect with the database and data exchange happen. Apart from that, we need to tell to Spring Boot application that this is my database and username and password. Please connect with this while starting the application. So that things we need to mention into application property. So this is the application property file. Here we are mentioning JDBC MySQL localhost means this is the URL, and this is the database name, username and password. Okay, these are the configuration thing of a DB config thing. Okay, this is a part of a application property file. Okay, till now configuration is done. Okay, so this is the by default auto generated code in a zip file we are getting. This is the starting point of your application. Okay, starting point, or you can call as entry point of your SP application, Spring Boot application. Apart from that, you need to create the user class. Okay, because we already created a create table. Okay, we already create table with a user, and same way like in a user we are mentioning that the ID, first name, last name, we ID as int, then primary key, all the things we need to mention. Then same way like first name with the varchar thing, varchar 52, then last name. This way we are creating our table. Okay, so once we create that table, we need to map this with the entity. So this is the entity. We are just mentioning ID, means this is the primary key, and ID is the primary key. Apart from first name, last name is the 2 columns. Here we are defining unique constraint, like email is a unique, okay, unique is a true, and password. So all the field it should map with the database, okay. This, okay, so till now we are created a class, and that class match with the table, okay. Here class should be defined as entity, and table name is this table name, like employee or user, whatever we created, that should be highlighted like entity as a entity, name as a table name as a user, and entity is a annotation here, okay. These 2 annotation is required, okay. After that we need to tell the JPA like, okay, this class and this mapping is done, please provide the additional operations over that class, so that I can save or read the data from this, okay. Read write operation, I should basic operation should perform. So JPA provide one interface to access read write functions. So that's why we need to define like a repository. That means by repository, like user repository, here we are mentioning user entity and long, here we are saying that ID is a long, so unique key is a long, and user entity. So based on this long, user entity will happen. So by default it provide the save, means all the read write operation, okay. Read write operation it will provide. In addition to that, if you want, you can just mention like find by email address. So based upon email address I need to pull out the data, and the object should be converted into user entity, okay. At a controller level I am mentioning at a controller path as a user, okay. User is a path, and here I am mentioning user repository, because this is the Spring Boot provided this as an interface to access our entity, like a DB entity need to access through this interface like user repository. So whenever I am doing any operation, I am directly, like if you check that user entity save is we are doing, but in here we don't have the save method, that is implicitly provided, okay. No need to write this save method here, by default it's there. So we are just using the save repository find all or a save method from our parent interface, because our interface is our interface is extended by JPA repository that are implicitly provided this save and find all and all the operations whichever basically required, okay. That's it about the Spring Boot JPA, or a Spring Boot MySQL JPA. You can check it out next session around the Spring Boot and NoSQL MongoDB connection and data retrieval, all this stuff. Yeah, till now, bye bye, thanks.